Florida, a state known for its beautiful beaches, bustling cities, and world-famous theme parks. But beneath the surface, hidden beyond the sunlit shores and tourist attractions, lies something far more sinister. Florida is home to some of the most haunted locations in America, places where the dead refuse to rest, where spirits roam freely, and where the past still echoes through the present. The stories you're about to hear are real, told by those who have witnessed the unexplainable. These are the top 10 most haunted places in Florida. If you dare, come with us as we uncover the secrets hidden within the shadows. It stands tall, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, a beacon of light guiding sailors home. But for many who step inside, the St. Augustine Lighthouse is far from a place of safety. The air is thick with history, and beneath its majestic exterior lies a tragedy that has left a mark on this lighthouse forever. The year was 1873. The lighthouse keeper Hezekiah Petit had moved into the station with his wife and 3 daughters. The young girls loved playing near the tower, their laughter echoing through the halls. But one summer afternoon, as they played near the construction site of the new lighthouse, something went terribly wrong. A wooden supply cart, once thought to be secured, began rolling down the tracks. The 3 girls were trapped inside. Before anyone could react, the cart plunged into the ocean. 2 of the girls perished that day. Only 1 survived. Since then, strange occurrences have plagued the lighthouse. Tourists have seen small shadowy figures running up and down the spiral staircase. Some say they hear childlike laughter, distant, eerie, as if carried by the wind. At night, objects move on their own. The lightkeepers report their tools vanishing, only to reappear in different locations. And on some nights, the sound of a girl's giggle echoes through the tower, followed by the whisper of a single word: "Help." The most chilling encounter? A group of paranormal investigators, documenting activity inside the tower, set up a motion sensor camera. At 3:02 a.m., the camera caught a small figure peeking from behind the railing. A childlike silhouette, watching, waiting. But when they rushed up the stairs, there was no one there. Would you climb the stairs of the St. Augustine Lighthouse at night? Nestled in the heart of Coral Gables stands the legendary Biltmore Hotel. Built in 1926, this grand, luxurious resort has seen its fair share of high society, lavish parties, and extravagant galas. But it has also been home to something far darker. During Prohibition, the hotel was more than just a glamorous getaway. It became a secret haven for mobsters, bootleggers, and high-stakes gamblers. One of them was Thomas "Fatty" Walsh, a well-known mobster who used the hotel as his personal playground. One evening inside the 13th floor suite, a high-stakes poker game took a deadly turn. An argument broke out over a rigged bet and gunfire erupted in the room. When the dust settled, Fatty Walsh lay dead on the floor. His killers? Never found, but Fatty he never left. Ever. Guests who stay on the 13th floor report hearing phantom gunshots in the middle of the night. The elevator, despite being locked, travels to the floor on its own. And then there are the sightings, shadowy figures wandering the halls dressed in 1920s-style suits. Some guests have reported feeling an invisible presence pass by them, accompanied by the faint scent of cigar smoke. The hotel staff has grown accustomed to the activity, but there's one story they refuse to talk about: the mirror incident. A guest staying in room 1302 awoke in the middle of the night to the feeling of someone watching him. He turned on the light and looked in the mirror, and that's when he saw it. A man in a fedora standing behind him. He spun around. The room was empty, but when he looked back at the mirror, the figure was still there. Would you dare to stay on the 13th floor of the Biltmore Hotel? Some homes are built for comfort. This one was built for the dead. The Riddle House, located in West Palm Beach, was originally a funeral parlor. The walls have seen countless burials, grieving families, and final farewells. But what lingers here is something far more disturbing. In the early 1900s, the house was bought by Carl Riddle, a wealthy businessman. He transformed it into a private residence, but soon, the staff began noticing strange occurrences. The attic, once used for storage, became a place of dread. The house's caretaker Joseph was often seen talking to himself in hushed whispers. His mood grew darker, his paranoia worse. One night Joseph climbed to the attic and took his own life. And ever since, no one has been able to stay in that attic for long. Paranormal investigators have attempted several overnight stays, but none could last more than an hour. The moment they step inside, they feel a crushing pressure on their chest. The room grows ice cold and the whispers begin. One investigator recording EVP sessions captured a chilling response. When asked, "Who is here?" a deep, guttural voice replied, "Get out." Chairs move on their own. Doors slam violently shut. Some visitors have even reported being shoved by unseen hands. Would you enter the attic of the Riddle house? The haunted history of Florida is only beginning. We've uncovered the spirits of lost children, murdered gangsters, and vengeful souls. But the most terrifying places are still to come. Next, we explore even darker hauntings, including a castle with a ghostly soldier and an island where spirits whisper in the wind. Turn on notifications because what's coming next you won't believe. Beyond the sun-soaked streets and tourist-filled attractions, the real Florida exists in the places forgotten by time, where the past still lingers, waiting to be seen. Castillo de San Marcos, the Fortress of Shadows. In the city of St. Augustine, where the echoes of Spanish rule still haunt the air, stands one of the most imposing landmarks in Florida, Castillo de San Marcos. A centuries-old stone fortress, once a shield against invasion, now a relic of a time when war, betrayal, and bloodshed were woven into the walls themselves. Built in the late 1600s, this massive stronghold was a place of violence, imprisonment, and death. Many soldiers fought and fell within its walls, but some never truly left. The most famous ghost story comes from the legend of Dolores and Captain Manuel Abala, a tragic love affair doomed from the start. Dolores was the wife of a powerful Spanish commander, but while her husband was away on duty, she found comfort in the arms of Captain Abela. When the commander discovered the betrayal, both Dolores and the captain vanished without a trace. For decades, their disappearance remained a mystery, until a hidden chamber was discovered in the fort's stone walls. Inside, two skeletons lay entombed together, bricked in alive. Today, their presence is still felt. Visitors report hearing whispers in the empty corridors, feeling cold breath on their necks, and witnessing the shadowy figures of a man and woman walking hand in hand, before disappearing into the stone. At night, the air around the fort is heavy, as if unseen eyes are always watching. Some claim to see ghostly lanterns glowing near the old watchtowers, moving as if carried by soldiers still guarding the fortress. The Castillo de San Marcos has withstood centuries of storms, invasions, and time itself, but those who have stepped within its walls say it stands as more than a monument to history. It is a tomb for the restless dead. Key West is known for its beautiful waters, lively streets, and endless sunshine. But beneath its charm, the island hides one of the most terrifying artifacts in paranormal history. Inside the Fort East Martello Museum, locked away in a glass case, sits a doll unlike any other. His name, Robert. The legend of Robert the doll has sent chills down the spines of locals and visitors for over a century. Once belonging to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto, this eerie, child-sized doll became the center of one of the most infamous hauntings in Florida's history. It is said that Robert the doll has a life of his own. His eyes follow those who dare look at him. Museum staff report seeing his expression change throughout the day. Some have heard giggling when no one else is around. The most chilling detail? Those who disrespect the doll, mocking it or taking photos without permission, are met with misfortune. Letters flood into the museum from visitors who ignored the warnings, letters of car accidents, sudden illnesses, and unexplained tragedies, all begging Robert for forgiveness. To this day, no one knows where the doll's power comes from. Some claim it was cursed by an old servant of the Otto family. Others believe Robert simply absorbed the energy of years of love, fear, and attention. Whether it's real or just an eerie coincidence, one thing is certain. No one walks past Robert the doll without feeling something watching them. Hidden deep within the town of Cassadaga, Florida, lies a place known only to those who dare seek it out. A cemetery where the veil between the living and the dead is said to be paper thin. In the far corner of this graveyard sits an old, crumbling brick bench. The locals call it the Devil's Chair. The legend? If you sit on the chair at midnight, the devil himself will whisper in your ear. Some say he promises things, power, riches, knowledge, if you stay long enough to listen. Others claim that if you leave a full beer on the chair overnight, by morning it will be empty, but never moved. Ghost hunters and skeptics alike have tested the legend. Many leave laughing, brushing it off as nothing but folklore. But others? Some leave changed, sick, pale, unable to explain the feeling that something followed them home. One man who sat in the chair for an hour, daring the legend to prove itself, reported a strange phenomenon. As he walked back to his car, he felt a pressure against his back as if unseen hands were guiding him. When he got home, he found 3 long scratches down his spine. He swears he was alone. Cassadaga is often called the psychic capital of the world, home to mediums and spiritualists who claim to communicate with the other side. But in the dark corners of its cemetery, some say that something far older, far more sinister lingers. The Seven Sisters Inn, a house of many spirits. In the quiet town of Ocala, there stands a Victorian home that has become known as one of the most haunted bed and breakfasts in Florida. The Seven Sisters Inn looks beautiful from the outside, ornate, colorful, and welcoming, but beneath its charm, the house holds something much darker. The house is believed to be a portal, a place where spirits pass freely between worlds. Paranormal investigators have recorded whispers in empty rooms, seen objects move on their own, and felt ice-cold hands brush against them in the dead of night. Guests have spoken of waking up paralyzed in bed, unable to move as a shadowy figure lingers at the foot of their mattress. Others have heard children's laughter echoing down the hall, only to open their doors and find nothing but silence. The spirits here are many. Some are harmless, playful, curious, others, not so much. One guest reported seeing a woman in a flowing blue dress standing in the mirror behind her. She turned, but there was no one there. The Seven Sisters Inn no longer operates as a bed and breakfast. Perhaps it was the economy, or maybe some places simply aren't meant to be disturbed. The Maystringer House, the weeping ghost of Brooksville. Atop a quiet hill in Brooksville, Florida, sits the Maystringer House, a 4-story Victorian mansion with a chilling past. Built in the mid-1800s, the home has seen generations of families come and go, but one spirit has never left. Her name is Jessie May. Jessie was just 3 years old when she fell gravely ill and died in one of the upstairs rooms. Her mother, overwhelmed with grief, passed away soon after. And now the house belongs to them. Visitors say Jessie's presence is strongest in her old bedroom. A small rocking chair sits in the corner, untouched, but those who enter the room say they have seen it rocking on its own. Her toys, placed neatly in a chest at night, are often scattered across the floor by morning. Some visitors have even heard a child's voice calling softly for Mama when no one else is there. But there is something else inside the house. Ghost hunters claim to have seen a dark figure roaming the halls at night, its shape shifting, watching from the shadows. Some believe it is something far older than Jesse, something tied to the land itself. And when the house is quiet, when the night stretches long, some say you can hear the sound of a woman crying, low, desperate, endless. In Florida, there is a stretch of highway where no one should stop. A place where accidents are frequent, radio signals fail, and unseen hands grip the steering wheel. They call it the I-4 dead zone. Beneath the pavement, long before the road was ever built, there was a small settlement. In the 1800s, a group of immigrants made the land their home, until a devastating yellow fever outbreak wiped out nearly all of them. The survivors fled, leaving behind a makeshift cemetery where the dead lay buried beneath unmarked crosses. Years later, when construction crews broke ground for Interstate 4, they were warned, "Do not disturb the graves." But they didn't listen. The highway was built directly over the burial site, paving over the forgotten dead, and that's when the accidents began. Drivers report seeing ghostly figures standing on the side of the road, then vanishing into thin air. Some have picked up unexplained voices on their radio frequencies, whispering in languages long lost to time. The weather in the dead zone is unpredictable. Storms form out of nowhere, lightning striking in patterns too precise to be natural. Truckers who pass through in the dead of night tell stories of phantom hitchhikers appearing in their rearview mirrors, only to be gone in the next blink. And the crashes? There have been more accidents in this short stretch of highway than anywhere else on Interstate 4. Some drivers say they feel an invisible force yanking the wheel, pulling them toward the roadside. And those who stop? Some never leave. Some hear voices, some feel the presence of something watching, and some never speak of what they experience at all. These are the last and most terrifying of Florida's haunted places. The Ashley's restaurant haunting a ghost that never left. In Rockledge, Florida, there's a small restaurant known for its history, its charm, and its ghosts. Ashley's restaurant, built in the 1930s, is more than just a dining spot. It's the scene of a murder mystery that has never been solved. The legend begins with a woman named Ethel Allen. Ethel was a young, vibrant woman last seen alive at this very restaurant. Days later, her mutilated body was found near the banks of the Indian River. Her killer was never caught. Ever since, strange occurrences have plagued Ashley's restaurant. Employees claim to hear phantom footsteps when the place is empty. Lights flicker on and off by themselves. Silverware moves, glasses shatter on their own, and chairs are found turned upside down in the morning. But the most disturbing reports come from the women's restroom. Many have said they've seen a woman's reflection in the mirror, one that doesn't match their own. Some have felt cold hands grip their shoulders only to turn and find no one there. One former manager reported being pushed so violently down the stairs that he broke 2 ribs. He swears he was alone. Some believe Ethel is still looking for justice. Others say she's simply trapped in the place where she spent her final moments. Would you dare eat at Ashley's restaurant? In Marianna, Florida, hidden deep in the woods, stands an old iron bridge, rusted with time and weighed down with tragedy. They call it the Bellamy Bridge. And if you walk across it at midnight, you might not be alone. The legend begins in 1837, with a woman named Elizabeth Bellamy. Elizabeth was young, beautiful, and deeply in love. On the day of her wedding, she wore a stunning white gown, her future shining bright ahead of her. But that future never came. Moments after the ceremony, a terrible accident occurred. Some say her dress caught fire from a nearby candle. Others say she fell into the river and drowned. Either way, her fate was sealed. Her groom, devastated beyond words, took his own life just a year later. Now, over a century later, Elizabeth is still seen on the bridge. Travelers report seeing a woman in white standing at the center, her dress flowing in the wind, but when they call out to her, she vanishes into the fog. Some nights, the air turns unnaturally cold, and those who walk across the bridge claim to hear a soft, distant sobbing. One visitor, a skeptic, set up a camera to debunk the legend. What he captured sent him running, a faint figure appearing behind him, hovering just above the water. Elizabeth never made it past her wedding day, and now she wanders the Bellamy Bridge, forever searching for something she'll never find. Some prisons are abandoned, some are torn down, and some refuse to let go of the souls inside. The old jail in St. Augustine, built in 1891, once held the most dangerous criminals in Florida. Its walls saw executions, riots, and countless deaths. And today, the prisoners never left. Visitors who step inside report feeling a heavy pressure on their chest, as if unseen eyes are watching from the darkness. Visitors who step inside report feeling a heavy pressure on their chest, as if unseen eyes are watching from the darkness. Tour guides have reported hearing disembodied voices, doors slamming on their own, and even the faint sound of shackles dragging across the floor. One of the most terrifying encounters comes from cell 17. A woman visiting the jail claims she felt someone whisper into her ear, but when she turned around, she was completely alone. Moments later, she felt a sharp pain on her arm. When she looked down, 3 red scratches had appeared, fresh, burning. She left and never returned. Those who spend time in the old jail say that at night, if you stand near the cells and stay quiet, you'll hear something you wish you hadn't. The last screams of men who never walked out alive.
There are places in Florida where the past refuses to stay buried. Places where the air grows thick with something unseen, where whispers rise in the dark, and where those who enter are never quite the same when they leave. Some locations are cursed, others are merely haunted by time itself. But there are those few, rare and terrifying, that seem to hold on to the living, as if waiting to pull them into the shadows. The Sunland Mental Hospital, the place of no return. Deep in the heart of Florida once stood one of their most disturbing hospitals in the state's history. The Sunland Mental Hospital was originally built in the 1950s as a treatment center for children with disabilities, but over time it became something else. A place of neglect, a place of pain, a place of suffering. Understaffed and overwhelmed, the hospital soon fell into horrific conditions. Patients were left in filthy rooms, strapped to their beds for days. Those who cried out for help were often met with silence, or worse. By the 1970s, reports of severe mistreatment and abuse forced the hospital to close its doors. But the trauma of what happened inside never left. Long after it was abandoned, ghost hunters and thrill seekers began sneaking inside. They reported hearing moaning from empty rooms, seeing wheelchairs move on their own, and feeling cold hands brush against them in the hallways. One urban explorer recording footage in the hospital's underground morgue captured something chilling. A shadowy figure standing in the far corner, motionless, watching. When he turned his flashlight toward it, it was gone. In the early 2000s, the city finally demolished the remains of Sunland Hospital, hoping to erase its dark past. But, you know, the land itself remains untouched. And to this day, those who live nearby say that at night, if the wind is just right, you can still hear the screams of those who never made it out. The Bloody Bucket Bridge, the legend of the cursed midwife. There is a bridge in Wauchula, Florida, where the water runs red at night. Locals call it the Bloody Bucket Bridge. The story begins with a midwife in the early 1900s known for delivering babies in the small rural town. But as the years went on, rumors spread that she was not what she seemed. Mothers whispered that their babies never came home, that the midwife was hiding something, and soon the town began to suspect the horrifying truth. The woman had been drowning newborns, disposing of them in buckets and emptying the water into the river. Some say she was insane, others claim she was cursed. But one thing is certain, after she was discovered, she was never seen again. Some say she fled, others say the town made sure she paid for her crimes. Now, decades later, the bridge where she once emptied her buckets is said to be cursed. On some nights, the water beneath the bridge runs red as blood. Those who dare to stand on the bridge at midnight report hearing faint cries, like an infant's wail, echoing through the trees. And some say they've seen her standing on the banks of the river, holding an empty bucket, her eyes hollow, searching for more souls to take. Few stay long enough to find out if she ever finds them. The Stetson Mansion, the cursed Christmas lights. Some ghosts are tied to tragedy, some are bound by vengeance. And some refuse to leave because their love for a place is stronger than death itself. The Stetson Mansion, built in the late 1800s in DeLand, Florida, is known as one of the most beautiful Victorian homes in the state. But for those who have stepped inside, it is something more. The mansion was once home to John B. Stetson, the famous hat maker who built an empire, a man of wealth, power, and secrets. Though Stetson died in 1906, those who have owned the house since say he never truly left. The most famous haunting happens every Christmas season. Each year, when the mansion is decorated with lights, something strange happens. No matter what the owners do, certain lights will turn on and off by themselves. Some believe it is John Stetson himself admiring the holiday decorations he once loved. Others think the mansion holds more than just one spirit. Over the years, visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures in the hallways, hearing music playing from an empty ballroom, and feeling the presence of something unseen watching from the staircases. One visitor even claimed that as she stood by the grand Christmas tree, she felt a hand brush against her back, gentle, lingering, before vanishing into thin air. The Stetson Mansion is a place of beauty, a place of history, and perhaps a place where the past will always remain.